Niggas with attitude. Dr. Dre, all the NWA.
Dr. Dre.
That's who I wanted to be when I was a kid. I wanted to be in NWA.
I'm chilling at Eazy-E and Dr. Dre's Wet n Wild pool party.
I was actually over one of the people's houses who put this together, Jimmy Iovine, and he played the tape for me, and I wanted to work with him from that point.
I just want to be known as a legitimate MC, and that's all I could have ever hoped for.
And the winner is Eminem. Mr. Controversy, Eminem.
Eminem. The Oscar goes to Eminem.
Relationship between me and them, you know, he provided opportunities for me to take care of myself.
He seems like the only person you are loyal to.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, this guy, he was putting out mixtapes. It seemed like every single week there was another mixtape. He was taking other people's beats and he was destroying them. Right? It's much more fun to be his friend than it is to be his enemy.
What makes him special?
Well, I think that he's willing to challenge himself.
First of all, I just want to say this. I love what Kendrick is doing.
But as far as the substance in hip-hop, Kendrick is bringing us back to that.
Nothing such as this has ever happened in Compton. It doesn't happen.
That's the way it goes in the city of Compton, boy.
Aftermath Part 1. Background. 1988. A group by the name of NWA, represented by Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, MC Ren, DJ Yella, and Arabian Prince, puts out their debut album, Straight Outta Compton. This is the introduction of a more raw, anger-filled perspective to music, aka gangsta rap. So much, in fact, that one song, Fuck Police, manages to get them a letter from the FBI, a first in music history, and they still perform it. Because of this and the other explicit nature on the album, it doesn't go on to receive much airplay, yet still goes on to become 3 times platinum. 1989. Ice Cube leaves NWA, and Dre's brother Tyree is killed in a gang-related attack and left with a broken neck. 1991. A New Low. While NWA is feuding with Ice Cube, Dre encounters Dee Barnes, a TV host who recently aired content of now rival Ice Cube disrespecting NWA members. During the encounter, Dre attacks Barnes, slamming her head against a wall, kicking her on the ground, and following her into a bathroom while proceeding to hit her in the back of the head. Barnes files assault charges, to which Dre pleads no contest and is fined $2,500, charged with 2 years probation, sentenced to 240 hours of community service, and required to make an anti-violence public service announcement. He has since apologized for this and similar allegations with other women, saying he was out of his fucking mind, citing the NWA problems at the time and the murder of his brother. He calls it a major blemish on who I am as a person, as we all should. This type of behavior is never acceptable or excusable. The rest of his apology and statement can be viewed on HBO's series, The Defiant Ones. Moving on from the incident, later that year, Dre leaves NWA with fellow member the DOC and his bodyguard, Suge Knight, to start something of their own. Aftermath Part 2. Origins. 1992. A year later, Dr. Dre drops his debut album, The Chronic, arguably the first appearance of the come-to-be-well-known G-Funk sound. The album goes on to become triple platinum and win Dre his first Grammy. During his time at Death Row, Dre will end up meeting Snoop Dogg, Tupac, and Interscope Records co-founder Jimmy Iovine. 1993. Dre produces Snoop Dogg's debut album, Doggy Style, which becomes the first debut album by an artist to release at the top of the Billboard 200. Despite having success with Death Row, Dre begins having disagreements with label boss Suge Knight, becoming concerned he is corrupt and out of control. It was somewhere between here and 1996 that Dre shows Iovine his album The Chronic, and they begin their talks on Dre leaving Death Row and creating his own label. 1995. Dre's friend and fellow NWA member Eazy-E passes away from AIDS. 8 years later, in 2003, Suge Knight, who was also a well-known enemy of Eazy-E, goes on to the Jimmy Kimmel Show and makes some odd comments about Eazy's death. This appearance causes some people to believe that Knight is responsible for Eazy's death. Check it out for yourself.
This is a new thing, right?
Yeah.
See, if somebody gonna do something about it, see, technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no.
1996. Dre and Tupac drop major hit single California Love before Dr. Dre goes through with his plans of leaving Death Row. Aftermath Part 3. The Beginning. Dre creates Aftermath Entertainment, vowing quality over quantity with the idea of releasing a small number of very well-crafted projects. Dre's first release on the label is a compilation album titled Dr. Dre Presents the Aftermath. The album goes on to essentially be forgotten. 1997. Dre signs R&B singer Dawn Robinson to Aftermath, but she leaves before the year's end. 2 more albums go on to be shelved throughout the year, one by rapper King T and the other by The Last Emperor. Dre ends up only releasing 1 album over the year by the rap supergroup The Firm. The group is made up of artists Foxy Brown, Nature, AZ, and Nas, and this is the only project they release, titling it The Album. Though it debuted at the top of the Billboard 200 and became certified platinum, it didn't meet expectations and the group soon disbanded. 1998. After a rocky 2-year startup, Aftermath signs Detroit rapper Eminem in hopes of finding new talent. 1999. Aftermath drops Eminem's major label debut album, the Slim Shady LP. The album is arguably the label's first successful release, topping Billboard 200, becoming quadruple platinum, and winning Eminem his first 2 Grammys a year later. Dre also drops his second album, 2001, meant to be a follow-up to The Chronic. It ends up going 6 times platinum. 2000. Aftermath releases Eminem's second album on the label, self-titled The Marshall Mathers LP. It sells 1.76 million copies in its first week, breaking records at the time and topping the Billboard 200. In 2011, the album is certified Diamond, the highest achievable RIAA status, selling over 21 million copies worldwide. 2001. Aftermath scores 4 more Grammys, 1 belonging to Dre, 1 to Eminem, and 2 split between the duo. 2002. After Eminem hears a CD by a New York rapper from Queens who had just been shot 9 times a year prior, he convinces Dre to sign him to Aftermath. This artist is 50 Cent, and from this point on, he and Eminem go on to dominate the market for the next decade. Aftermath Part 4. M and 50. That year, Eminem's 3rd album under the label, The Eminem Show, releases, also selling 1 million copies in its first week and going on to be certified Diamond, selling over 26 million copies worldwide, as well as winning Eminem 2 more Grammys a year later. 2002 also brings the major motion picture loosely based around Eminem's personal life titled 8 Mile. It comes with its own soundtrack, which goes quadruple platinum, winning Eminem 2 more Grammys and an Academy Award. Dre also begins work on his 3rd and said to be final album, Detox. 2003. Aftermath releases 50 Cent's debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying, topping the Billboard 200 and becoming 8 times platinum. A hit single off the album titled In the Club breaks the Billboard record for most listened to song in radio history within a week. 50 Cent also makes an investment in vitamin water this year, getting a minority share and his own flavor, Formula 50, in exchange for becoming a spokesperson for the brand. 50 Cent then finds the next Aftermath signee, The Game, a rapper from Compton who had just recovered from being shot 5 times. 2004. Eminem's 4th Aftermath album, Encore, releases, debuting at the top of the Billboard 200, selling over 1 million copies in its first week, going quadruple platinum, and even causing the Secret Service to look into claims that Eminem threatened U.S. President George W. Bush. This is due to lyrics on his song We as Americans stating, "Fuck money, I don't rap for dead presidents, I'd rather see the president dead," as well as the music video for the song Mosh, depicting Eminem and an angry mob of protesters storming the White House during a presidential speech. On the album, Eminem also mentions Dre's 3rd album, Detox, saying, "And don't worry about that Detox album, it's coming." Eminem also goes on to produce 12 of the 16 tracks on Tupac's posthumous album, Loyal to the Game, which would top the Billboard 200 and become platinum. 2005. 50 Cent's second album, The Massacre, releases, selling 1.14 million copies in its first 4 days, the most ever in an abbreviated cycle at this time, meaning less than a full week. It tops the Billboard 200 and stays there for 6 weeks, as well as going on to become 5 times platinum. 50 Cent also has a major motion picture loosely based around his personal life released this year, titled Get Rich or Die Trying, as well as his video game 50 Cent Bulletproof. The game is based around an alternate reality where 50 Cent vows revenge on the men who shot him, though in real life the man who supposedly shot him was killed 3 weeks later. Eminem and Dre make appearances as self-based characters in the game, which sells over 1 million copies, the music industry standard for platinum. Both his movie and game have their own unique soundtrack as well, meaning 50 Cent dropped 3 separate collections of music in this 1 year. At this point, Eminem and 50 Cent are seen as an unstoppable force in the music industry, at the peak of their success. A collection is also dropped this year by Eminem, topping the Billboard 200 and going double platinum. However, it's a greatest hits collection, and this causes rumors of Eminem's retirement to begin circulating. The Game also drops his debut album, The Documentary, topping the Billboard 200 and going double platinum before having disagreements with 50 Cent and leaving Aftermath a year later. On his album, however, Dre features on the song titled Higher, only saying the phrase, "Look out for Detox," his third and still unreleased album. 2006. Dre founds his headphone company, Beats by Dre, and at this time, many producers were talking of the work they were doing with him for his upcoming album, Detox, as it even received a cover story from Scratch Magazine as hip-hop's unreleased masterpiece. All this hype launches it into a sort of mythical status among rap fans, and Eminem's longtime childhood friend Proof is also shot and killed this year. 2007. 50 Cent and Kanye West both have upcoming albums. 50's self-titled Curtis and Kanye's Graduation. The two meet, listening to each other's albums, and turn it into a friendly competition for sales, admitting it is mainly to entertain consumers. Kanye even goes as far as changing his release date to the same as 50's, September 11th of that year, creating a fan division. 50 is so confident he'll win, however, he vows to stop releasing solo albums if he loses. In the end, Kanye's Graduation debuted atop the Billboard 200 and went double platinum, leaving 50 Cent at number 2 with only one platinum certification. 50 Cent cites having writer's block during the production of the album, understandably after releasing 3 collections of music, a movie, and a video game just 2 years prior. Though he lost his competition with Kanye, he pulls a win with his vitamin water investment. That year, Coca-Cola buys Glacier, the producer of vitamin water, for $4.1 billion, earning 50 Cent over $100 million from his share in the company. This purchase makes 50 Cent one of the world's richest rappers. It is at this time that Eminem says he had been taking around 60 Valium and 30 Vicodin pills a day, as well as being addicted to Xanax. He even nearly dies, ODing on what doctors call the equivalent of 4 bags of heroin. Also in 2007, Dre says in an interview that he has been working on Detox for the past 8 years, but it still needs to be pushed back yet again. 2008. Eminem begins rehab and receives close support from friend Elton John, while Dre's son Andre Jr. of 20 years is found dead from a drug overdose. This year, Dre's company Beats would also release its first product, the Studio Headphones, in partnership with Monster Cable. 2009. Eminem's 5th album, Relapse, drops, filled with comedic accents and twisted perspectives. The album debuts at the top of the Billboard 200 and goes double platinum, winning Eminem 2 more Grammys, including one shared with Dre and 50 Cent. This becomes 50's first and only Grammy. 50 also ends up going back on his 2007 statement from his Kanye competition and releases his 4th album, Before I Self-Destruct. The album doesn't reach the level of his prior projects, taking a bit to receive its platinum status, but he also releases his second video game, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, which receives better reception than his first, but less than a tenth as many sales. Catching up with Detox, Snoop Dogg gives the news that Detox is finally finished, and Dre confirms, aiming for a soon-to-be release date, only for Interscope founder Iovine to shut down the idea, saying that Dre needed to spend more time on Eminem's Relapse album. 2010. Aftermath releases Eminem's 6th album for the label, titled Recovery, debuting and remaining at the top of the Billboard 200 for 5 weeks, going 4 times platinum and winning Eminem 2 more Grammys. He also releases his second Bad Meets Evil collab project with Royce da 5'9" titled Hell the Sequel, also topping the Billboard 200. The first confirmed singles of Detox, titled I Need a Doctor, and Kush also release. Later in November, however, he pulls the plug to take a break and spend time with family, he says. 2011. Aftermath hype begins to die down, with 50 Cent's last 2 albums not doing as good as expected, and Eminem going through the rehabilitation process. Things just got quiet. But something was going on behind the curtains. Remember Dre's '96 song with Tupac, California Love? Well, at its music video shoot in Compton, on the sidelines, there was a fascinated young boy watching by the name of Kendrick Duckworth. 8 years later, the boy would release his own music under the name K-Dot, and 7 years after that, Dre would hear one of his songs titled Ignorance is Bliss. 2012 comes around, and Dre signs him to Aftermath under his first and middle name, Kendrick Lamar. Aftermath Part 5. King Kenny. Aftermath releases Kendrick's major label debut album, Good Kid, Mad City, getting to number 2 on the Billboard and going platinum 9 months later, eventually becoming triple platinum. Side note, at the same time, this was the beginning of the switch from purchasing to streaming music. Starting in 2012 with companies like Pandora, streaming became a popular subscription service alternative to individual purchases, and by 2018 it had taken over the music industry with companies like Spotify, Tidal, and Amazon Music. Apple had even moved its focus over from its iTunes marketplace to its streaming service, Apple Music. This creates a new challenge of now defining what a platinum certification would mean, including streams. 2013. Kendrick guest features on Big Sean's track Control and blows up, with his Twitter following increasing by 510% after the release of the song. In his verse, he vows to lyrically murder every other up-and-coming rapper, including ones that are friends of his. Eminem releases his 6th Aftermath album in follow-up to Marshall Mathers LP 1, the Marshall Mathers LP 2. It debuts atop the Billboard 200, goes quadruple platinum, wins Eminem 2 more Grammys, and makes him the first artist ever since the Beatles to have 4 singles in the top 20 chart at once. 2014. 50 Cent leaves Aftermath on good terms and releases his Animal Ambition album under Atlantic Records, as well as beginning his Starz Network series Power, which goes on to become a big success for him. At the time, Dre is currently in talks with Apple over buying his company Beats by Dre, when in May, a close friend, actor Tyrese Gibson, drunkenly posts a braggadocio video online boasting about the deal and dancing. However, in August, the deal goes through and Apple acquires Beats for $3 billion, their largest purchase in history. This made Dre the richest man in hip-hop at the time. It also is announced that Dre's next album would not be titled Detox, sending it to a legendary unfinished album status by fans. 2015. Dre releases his 3rd album, titled Compton, debuting number 2 on the Billboard 200. Dre also, alongside NWA member Ice Cube, helps produce the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton, releasing that year. Upon its release, it became the highest-grossing musical biopic of all time until it was surpassed by Bohemian Rhapsody in 2018. Kendrick Lamar releases his 2nd album under Aftermath, To Pimp a Butterfly, with a feature from Tupac. It debuts atop the Billboard 200, goes platinum, wins Kendrick his first 5 Grammys, and establishes Spotify's global first-day streaming record at 9.6 million. A hit single from the album, Alright, displaying themes of perseverance and maintaining positivity during hard times, even becomes a forefront in the Black Lives Matter movement, which is very prevalent at the time. Many people now consider this one of the best rap albums to ever come out in the 2000s. 2016. Kendrick releases a compilation album, Untitled Unmastered, made of unfinished demo songs, which debuts at the top of the Billboard 200 chart. Kendrick is also invited to the White House early in the year for a meeting with President Barack Obama about a campaign titled Pay It Forward, and later on the 4th of July performs at the White House. He also receives 1 more Grammy that year, and Anderson .Paak becomes the label's newest signee, bringing a vintage jazz vibe to the label after featuring on Dr. Dre's album Compton. Before the year ends, he releases his label debut, Malibu. 2017. Eminem releases his 9th album for Aftermath, Revival, debuting at the top of the Billboard 200, making Eminem the first musical artist to have 8 entries in a row atop the Billboard 200. Despite its beginning success, this will become known as Eminem's worst album and begin the shift in rap consumers starting to view his music as corny, played out, or try hard. Some people even now say his career is dead. At the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Kendrick Lamar being hailed as the king of hip-hop when he releases his 3rd album titled Damn. The album debuts number 1 on the Billboard 200, goes triple platinum, wins him 4 more Grammys and a Pulitzer Prize. This makes Kendrick the first non-jazz or classical artist to win the prestigious award. 2018. Eminem drops his first surprise album and 10th Aftermath project, a follow-up to Revival titled Kamikaze. The album debuts at the top of the Billboard 200, gets certified platinum, and becomes the most purchased hip-hop album of the year. The album does receive a better response than Revival, but Eminem does not regain his untouchable position as he had on the internet before, still facing backlash for Revival. Kendrick spends the year helping curate and produce the soundtrack for the Marvel film Black Panther, which debuts atop the Billboard 200, goes platinum, and wins Kendrick another Grammy. He also makes his acting debut on the previously mentioned series Power, executively produced by 50 Cent. Lastly, Anderson .Paak drops his 2nd album for the label, Oxnard. 2019. Anderson .Paak wins his first Grammy and releases his newest album, Ventura. 2020. The year hits and Eminem surprise drops his 11th Aftermath album, Music to be Murdered By. It debuts atop the Billboard 200 and makes Eminem the first artist ever to have 10 consecutive albums debut at the number 1 spot. RIAA certifications are currently at gold but still increasing. The album is getting better reception than both of its not-so-loved predecessors. This year, Anderson .Paak also wins 2 more Grammys for his work on Ventura. Aftermath. Now, Aftermath seems to maintain a powerful hand in the hip-hop and music industry as a whole, with its most recognizable artists being responsible for 27 separate Grammys, an Academy Award, a Pulitzer Prize, 2 Diamond certifications, 20 Platinum certifications, 3 successful movies, 2 video games, a successful television series, and countless number 1 albums, plus past tense as well as current world records. As of today, Kendrick Lamar is seen as the king of rap by many and is said to be currently working on a rock-inspired album. 50 Cent is seen as a mogul and a social media personality known for trolling other celebs and always being involved in some type of drama. He is also getting a star on the Walk of Fame before the end of January 2020. Dr. Dre is also seen as a mogul, but is much more reserved online, not showing much of his personal life on social media. He is also the third richest rapper in the world, with a net worth of $820 million, behind Jay-Z and P. Diddy. Eminem seems to be attempting a comeback after his reputation was severely damaged by his Revival album. Nonetheless, he is still backed by most of the game's greatest talents. The majority of people who dislike him are new waivers or listen to rap for how aesthetic it can come across rather than its lyrical content. In other words, ignorance is bliss. If you like the video, you can check out a behind the scenes coming out soon on my other channel linked in the description below. If you learned something and want to spread the knowledge, you can share the video and subscribe if you're looking forward to future lessons. If you appreciate the effort, you can leave a like or tell me what you didn't like in the comments, because that's what the internet is for, right? And finally, if you support what I'm doing and my ideas, you can help me out yourself through the links in the description below using either Buy Me a Coffee or GoFundMe. Or Patreon. Thank you. One love. Time to unplug.
By the time you hear the next pop, the knowledge shall be within you.